The Mystery of the Forgotten Treasure. Hello channel friends. Today I'm going to tell you an intriguing and adventure-filled story that takes us on a journey through time in search of a treasure forgotten centuries ago. Follow the characters on an exciting journey through ancient ruins and stunning scenery as they try to uncover the secret behind the treasure. With an engaging narrative and captivating characters, this story takes the reader on a true immersion into a world of mystery and discovery. And now, you can also follow this exciting adventure on our channel Ancient Stories and Facts. Subscribe now and don't miss out on anything new. Subscribed? Then it's done. Let's go to the story. Once upon a time there was a young man named Peter, who lived in a small village surrounded by mountains. He was a skilled and hardworking young man, but he felt that there was more to life than just tending to his farm and helping his family. One day, while Peter was out in the fields, he met a young man named Marcelo. Marcelo was a traveler and was passing through the village when he met Pedro. The two young men soon became friends and began to talk about their lives and their dreams. Marcelo talked about his adventures and travels, and Peter was fascinated by his stories. Marcelo, in turn, admired Pedro's determination and willpower. Together they began to dream of adventures they could experience together. In one of these conversations, Marcelo talked about a distant city, surrounded by gigantic mountains, that held a valuable treasure. Peter was intrigued and asked more about the city and the treasure. Marcelo explained that he had heard stories about this city, but that no one had ever found the treasure. Peter, with his strength and skill, decided that he could be the first to find the treasure and convinced Marcelo to join him on the journey. Thus, the two friends set out on a long journey through the mountains. They faced many challenges, such as crossing rivers, facing storms, and dealing with dangerous wild animals. Finally, after weeks of traveling, they arrived in the city Marcelo mentioned. The city was large and impressive, surrounded by high walls and majestic towers. They entered the city and began to search for the treasure. They searched everywhere, scoured every corner of the city, but found nothing. They were about to give up when a wise old man appeared. He asked what the two young men were looking for, and when they said they were looking for the treasure, the wise man smiled and said, "The real treasure is not in a chest, but in the journey to find it. You have already found the treasure you were looking for when you decided to embark on this adventure together." Peter and Marcellus understood what the wise man meant, and realized that the friendship that had grown between them was the real treasure they had found on their journey. They smiled at each other, and together they began the journey back home, carrying with them this valuable discovery and a friendship that would last forever. Peter looked at the woman in front of him and felt a wave of emotions collide within him. He knew that this was wrong, but he couldn't help it. Clara was married, and he had his own problems to deal with. But the attraction was too strong. He met Clara at a charity event, where they were both working as volunteers. Pedro volunteered to help with the organization, while Clara was responsible for publicizing the event. While setting up the tables and decorations, Pedro and Clara started talking and the chemistry between them was instantaneous. Since then, they started seeing each other more often. They would go out to dinner, go to the movies, go for walks together. Everything seemed so right, so easy. But Pedro knew that he couldn't let the situation continue like this. Marcelo, Clara's husband, was a good and honest man. He worked as a lawyer and was very dedicated to his family. Clara always spoke very fondly of him, and Pedro knew that he was getting involved in something that could cause a lot of suffering for all the people involved. But the attraction was too strong and Pedro could not stay away from Clara. He felt that he needed her as if she were his own life. And little by little he sank into a bottomless pit, not knowing how to get out. One day, while walking together in a park, Pedro decided that he needed to tell Clara the truth. He couldn't keep lying to himself and to her. But he knew that this could end everything they had built together. With his heart in his hand, he approached Clara and, with a trembling voice, began to talk about his feelings for her. Clara was in shock, but not surprised. She also had feelings for Pedro, but knew that she couldn't leave her marriage behind. The two of them were silent for a few minutes, until Clara made the decision that would change everything. She said that she needed time to think and that she needed to talk to Marcelo. Pedro agreed and, with a kiss on Clara's forehead, walked away. The days that followed were torturous for Pedro. He couldn't concentrate on anything, he could hardly sleep. But he knew that he had to wait for an answer from Clara. Finally, one day, Clara called him to talk. She said that she had decided to stay with Marcelo, but that she wanted to continue her friendship with Pedro. Pedro was devastated, but agreed. They continued to meet from time to time, but never again as before. Pedro knew that he had to leave his feelings for Clara behind and move on. But he never forgot the intensity of what he felt for her. And somehow he knew that he would never forget. The next day Pedro woke up with a brilliant idea. He decided that he would assemble a team of specialists in technology and artificial intelligence to develop a system to help prevent traffic accidents. He knew this was a great challenge, but it was also a unique opportunity to make a difference and save lives. Peter contacted some friends who were experts in programming and artificial intelligence, and they were all very enthusiastic about the idea. They spent days and nights working on the development of the system, and finally managed to create a prototype that looked promising. They tested the system in a car and found that it worked perfectly. The system used artificial intelligence to monitor the road and detect danger signals, such as pedestrians crossing the road, other cars changing lanes abruptly, or cyclists on the road. When the system detected a danger sign, it alerted the driver immediately so that he or she could take preventive action. And if the driver did not respond to the alert, the system would automatically apply the brakes to avoid a collision. Pedro knew he had something big on his hands and decided to present his idea to investors at a technology conference. He secured a large amount of funding and began to hire an even larger team of technology experts. The system became a success and began to be installed in cars all over the world. Traffic accidents decreased significantly and lives were saved thanks to the hard work of Pedro and his team of experts. Over time, Pedro became a reference in the world of technology and artificial intelligence, and his company became one of the largest in the industry. He never forgot his promise to make a difference and help save lives, and this promise has become a reality thanks to his determination and hard work. The next day, Clara woke up with a feeling of unease. She was still thinking about what Marcelo had said and realized that she didn't want to let the opportunity to have a more meaningful life pass her by. She decided that she would accept Pedro's invitation and start working with him at the NGO. When she arrived at the NGO, Pedro introduced her to the staff and took her on a tour of the animal shelter they maintained. Clara was impressed with the amount of animals that needed care and affection. She felt that she was doing something really important to help care for these animals and give them a second chance. Throughout the days, Clara worked hard and dedicated herself completely to the cause of the NGO. She was happy and satisfied with the work she was doing, feeling that she was finally doing something that really mattered. She and Pedro became close friends and started working together on several projects. Marcelo, who was still thinking about Clara, called her a few times, but she realized that she no longer felt the same way about him. She had found a purpose in life and no longer wanted to waste her time in relationships that did not make her happy. As time went by, Clara became a more confident and fulfilled person. She had found her true passion and knew that she was making a difference in the lives of the animals and people that the NGO helped. She thanked Pedro for introducing her to this new perspective on life and knew that she was on the right track. Meanwhile, Marcelo had left his office and was walking through the streets of the city. He couldn't stop thinking about how the situation had become so complicated. Pedro had been kidnapped and he didn't know how to help Clara rescue him. It was then that Marcelo spotted a strange man following him from afar. He tried to ignore him and quickened his pace, but the man continued to follow him. Concerned, Marcelo decided to go into a store to lose him. Meanwhile, Pedro was stuck in an unknown place. He tried to get free, but he was bound and gagged. It was then that he noticed that there was a cell phone in his pocket. With difficulty, he managed to unlock it and call Clara. Clara, who was desperate at home, answered the call immediately. Pedro explained the situation and gave some clues as to where he could be. Clara wrote everything down on a piece of paper and ran to the car to try to rescue him. Meanwhile, Marcelo came out of the store and noticed that the strange man was still following him. He decided to confront him and asked who he was and what he wanted. It was then that the man revealed that he was a secret agent and was investigating a case related to a kidnapping ring in the city. Marcelo, relieved, explained the situation and asked for help. The secret agent promised to help him and together they went out in search of Clara and Pedro. Finally, Clara arrived at the place Pedro indicated and found him tied up. She let him go and hugged him with emotion. Marcelo and the secret agent also arrived at the location and together they arrested the kidnappers. With the situation resolved, Clara, Pedro and Marcelo gathered to talk and celebrate. They thanked the secret agent for his help and decided that they would never again get involved in anything that could put their lives at risk. After months of investigation, the team led by Deputy Pedro finally managed to gather enough evidence to arrest the criminal Marcelo. He was sentenced to a life sentence for the crimes of drug trafficking, money laundering, and murder. During the trial, Marcelo tried to defend himself by claiming that his actions were motivated by the need to support his family, but the judge did not accept his justifications and said that he was driven by greed and power. Marcelo's story was reported in several newspapers and became one of the most emblematic cases in the fight against organized crime in the country. Deputy Pedro, who led the investigation, was promoted and received several awards for his work. Clara, who had distanced herself from Marcelo as soon as she discovered his criminal activities, decided to start life anew in another city and dedicate herself to her writing career. She wrote a book based on her experience and became a reference in works of suspense and mystery. The story of Marcelo and his downfall is a warning to those who choose the path of crime in search of power and easy money. Justice may delay, but it will always prevail. So we come to the end of yet another story. If you like this story and want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and to activate the little bell to receive notifications of new videos. We have many interesting and original stories waiting for you. Thanks, and see you next time. Take the time to marathon our content.